All right, people, let's have a look at this roll between Mark Wales here on the left and Andreas on the right. Both of these guys are white belts, probably been training for about a year, and this is around from about a year ago. So starting off on the feet here, and Mark's obviously a mountain of a man here, but something that we can improve on the footwork is avoiding bringing our feet together. So we really want to avoid cross-stepping. Anytime our feet come into a line with each other like they are now, means we are more unstable, particularly in these directions. But if we can avoid bringing our feet together, it means that we are generally going to have a more stable base. And the way that we do that is by, if we're going to move right, we want to move our right foot first. That way our base will widen, and then when we move our left foot towards our right foot, we'll still have a nice wide base. Similarly, when we are moving backwards, we want to move our back foot first. Forwards, we want to move our front foot first, and that's just going to avoid these situations where the feet are coming together. Not a huge deal, and there are types of shots where we do want to bring our feet into one line when we change levels to shoot from those positions, but as a good rule of thumb, we want to avoid cross-stepping. So here, Mark kind of head fakes and goes for the single leg, and I think that's a really good way of getting into wrestling. Oftentimes, the hard part about wrestling is getting your setups happening to get your partner out of position before you can take somebody down. But something as simple as a head fake is often just enough, and most of the time the person who wins the wrestling is the person who just goes for it. So you can see here Mark with that head fake and then picks up a single leg and looks to put his partner down, does so successfully, and we get into this position where the knees are in front of the chest. So we'll let this play out and see how it goes. We can see Mark kind of tripoding over the top here, and then Andreas is able to free that bottom leg, and we get stuck in closed guard. So to avoid situations like closed guard, a good rule of thumb is something that if you are new to passing or finding it difficult to pass, a good cue for the person on top is to always try and pinch the person on the bottom's knees together. So in this case here, maybe Mark can use this right forearm to try and push Andreas's top knee towards his bottom knee and start rolling his chest a little bit to this side of the knee. Or we could do a very similar thing on the other side, where we try and pick up the bottom leg and bring Andreas's right leg over towards his left leg so we can keep the knees pinched together. So keeping the knees pinched together is just a good way to go about passing if you're not sure what to do. So here you can see Andreas has this right foot across the hip here, which generally means that collapsing the knees down in this direction might be a little bit more difficult, but moving towards the screen left will mean that Mark can use that left hand to try and push the knees together. So whenever you're passing and you're not sure what to do, just try and get the knees together. And so now we're in this almost like butterfly position here, which lends itself to body lock style passing. So body lock style passing generally involves the person on the top getting their head below the person on the bottom's chin and trying to keep the shoulders and hips flat on the mat. And the other thing that I would say about a spot like this is having our feet on the mat here with our knees off the ground is okay, but if we pop up to both feet, then we might be more likely for our partner to be able to free the bottom leg. So when Mark is already committed to moving around to this screen right side, trying to pass in this direction, not a bad idea. Perhaps this top arm could start pummeling to an underhook or using the hand to control the hip at the very least here. But I would say that this left hand can really monitor this bottom knee. If we cup that knee and keep our chest pressure on, then it's going to be unlikely that Andreas can get that bottom leg out and get back to closed guard. So we really want to keep our partner's knees together. Obviously, that would avoid being stuck in closed guard. But the other thing we can do is try and monitor that bottom leg to avoid that bottom leg becoming free and getting stuck in closed guard here. So this is basically a good opportunity to start a body lock style pass, which I'll just make a little note here. And I'll put some timestamp references for you guys, fill out this sheet, and we can start looking at other resources for body lock passes. And that might just give you some homework to do after watching this video, and I'll start populating this sheet as we go. So here, Andreas does a good job of getting that bottom leg out, gets to close guard, and now Mark's doing the right thing here, which is basically standing up straight away, particularly because we have a square base here. And by standing up, we are on our way to escaping close guard in probably the most effective way for no gi. So here, doing a good job at controlling the wrist here. Andreas has got that scoop grip on the leg. Mark is backstepping here and doing a great job of keeping his balance, backstepping and getting away here. So this is another opportunity where we're passing into this side control spot, and Andreas is doing a good job of keeping that shin across and that knees pointing out wide. So if we had the goal of keeping our partner's knees together, that means when we come around to a spot like this, you can see Mark has an excellent angle on this top leg. His chest is behind the outside of Andreas's knee here. There is no self frame of Andreas keeping this bottom leg from being collapsed down to the mat. So my goal here, if I was passing, would be to use my chest to try and smash that top knee towards the camera, and that way we can get the knees pinching together. We'd end up covering the hips with our chest, we'd have our partner's knees together, and there'd be a very good chance that we can turn that into some kind of back take or side control thing. So you can see this left hand is kind of reaching up for basically sort of like this over tie type position, which again is not a huge mistake, but I think it is very common for white belts to start reaching for the head, and which is not what Mark is doing, but reaching for the head would be a mistake because we're exposing our elbows and giving up underhooks and things like that. But here I would say this bottom hand could be better used to start acting on that top knee of Andreas and start pushing it to the side or pushing it down to the mat. But that way we can end up in this chest to chest position and looking to keep passing from here. So again, Andreas is doing a good job at right hand wrist control here, trying to free his bottom leg and get out to close guard, which he does successfully. So most of the time in these positions here, a good thing to do with this left knee is to really try and pinch it in towards the butt of Andreas so that his foot will be trapped in between the legs. And then that way we can force a half guard type position. We can see that this left leg of Andreas is already on the outside. So if we could just keep our partner's shoulders and hips flat on the mat and avoid that bottom leg coming out, then we should be in a very good passing position with chest to chest. So this is another example of a position where it's half guard chest to chest passing, but this position comes up a lot when we are body locking and we've sprawled off the hook from when they have a butterfly guard. So here, again, we get stuck in the closed guard, doing the right thing here, which is trying to keep ourself nice and central and trying to get our head free and our posture back. But one thing that we could correct a little bit here is trying to get our posture back first. So you can see that when we step up on this right leg, it means that our hips are up a little bit higher and Andreas's ability to pull Mark's head down is increased there. So what I would generally do is keep my knees on the mat first, and then that way we can use our hands to get to these inside bicep position or with hands in the armpits. And while our knees are on the ground, we can sit our butt back on our heels, get our posture back, and then we can look to stand up and get out. Somebody with a very dangerous closed guard will often be able to underhook our leg, particularly with this head control. And Andreas could use his right hand to kind of trap this elbow or wrist or hand, control this in some way. And while Mark is stepped up on this right leg, it means that the underhooking that Andreas could do on this leg would allow him to create a bit of an angle here and potential flower or pendulum sweep type variations off in this side. So whenever we're standing up to get out of closed guard, we want to make sure that we get our posture back first before standing up. So get out of closed guard, try to get posture back first, and then stand up so that we don't get our legs scooped up here while we still have our posture being controlled. But standing up to get out of here, definitely a good option. And now Andreas is going for this K-guard entry, and Mark is doing the right thing here, which is controlling the ankles. Pretty much any time we stand up out of closed guard, we're giving our partner an opportunity to enter into some kind of guard, which is either most typically a K-guard, a De La Riva, or some kind of open guard. And generally what the person on the bottom needs, particularly for a K-guard, is for this bottom knee to be pointing through and in between the legs like it is, and this top leg to whip around the back of Mark's knee to start turning Mark towards the camera. So if you're not sure what to do inside a K-guard type situation, then controlling the feet is a very good thing to do. It just prevents our partner being able to pummel their legs effectively, and it gives us more time to figure out what we want to do, whether that is to try and stand up on this right leg, keep our foot on the ground, and start looking to clear this knee from inside our hips, which could be done with either pushing this ankle down towards the butt, or alternatively, Mark could reach this right hand through in between his legs and scoop underneath Andreas's knee there and kind of do like a hip popping motion to try and bring that knee out from in between the legs. All those things would be good, but controlling the feet is probably the most important thing here. You can see that that really helps in getting rid of what is going on here. Really helps in getting rid of that inside knee position. So we are here on top, getting that bottom knee out of the way and getting to side control. Nicely done. And there's a little opportunity here as well to try and get rid of that inside frame of Andreas's. So when we land here in side control, you can see that Andreas's elbow is up and away from his ribs. So pretty much anytime we're in side control and we're on top here, if we have an opportunity to get that inside frame out from in between our hips there, then we're going to prevent our partner from being able to connect their bottom knee and elbow. So a good thing to think about in a situation like this is sliding this right knee up very high towards the back of the head and keeping this right hip nice and low. We can use the hand of our cross face there to pull our partner in towards our hips. And the whole idea of that is just to keep this elbow on the outside of our hip rather than letting our partner get this elbow back to the inside. So anytime you can beat that inside frame when we are on top in the side control, this inside forearm frame is a good thing to do. And that's a very good skill to practice as well. So on top in side control, we want to beat the inside forearm frame. So here Mark's doing a good job at keeping his base nice and wide here. He's kind of switched his base, looking towards the legs here a little bit. This crossface could be a little bit more active as well. You can see that we've got this gap between our elbow and Andreas's head, so we can talk more about crossfaces at another time. But basically we have two goals with our crossface: to either turn our partner's chin away from us, or alternatively to put on a more choking style crossface pressure where we want our shoulder underneath their chin. But in this position here, it looks like Andreas is doing a good job with that forearm frame and hooking the leg. So here, Mark's just trying to keep his head down. And you can see Andreas has got that hand blocking the hip there, which is a little thing you need to be careful of as well if we are using our left hand, in this case on the bottom, extended against the hip there. If our partner rolls their hips over and we have our hand kind of retracted, that can put basically wrist lock pressure on us. So it's not a terrible thing to do. It doesn't happen all the time, but generally framing with the forearm is probably a better bet there. And so now here, Mark's gone over the top with that right forearm on the chin, which is generally not going to be as effective at holding our partner down. You can see that when we've gone over the top with that forearm, there are attacks that we can do with that, but we've got less control of our partner's head because our crossface isn't as effective, and it means that Andreas can start looking to get up like he's doing now. So going back to that crossface is a good way of solidifying that upper body control. And the other thing that I would say here is avoiding that bottom knee of our partner coming in is mostly going to do with the position of our right knee. So of our left knee, sorry. So at the moment, we have a very good tight waist, and that has happened because on Andreas's bridge here, so right here, when Andreas bridges, Mark does an excellent job of getting that hand all the way underneath our partner's hips. And the reason why that is good on top is because generally, if we think about controlling both hips and both shoulders of the person on the bottom, or at least monitoring their position and keeping our partner flat, then we have a good chance at maintaining side control. So this arm over the back here is a very good way of controlling the hips and preventing the hip escape, because if Andreas can move out to the side here, there's more chance that that bottom knee can come into play. So when we're on the top here and we've gone for this tight waist grip with our left hand all the way underneath Andreas's lower back there, dropping that left hip onto the mat is a good idea. When we drop that left hip onto the mat, it means that we also free up our right hand to start looking to pin this wrist or pull up this elbow or dig to an underhook. We have a lot of options here, but we do want to be cautious of letting our partner get that bottom knee back in. So whether we're using a tight waist here or just an elbow jamming against the hip, we want either our knee in close towards the hip or our hip close towards the hip. So a note that I'll make here, and I'll be able to find some resources for you guys to check out afterwards, will be when we're in top side control, we want to make sure our partner can't get their bottom knee in. And that means either having our left hip in this case dropped, or in this case here where we're kind of scrambling a little bit, pointing this left knee back in towards the hip. But also recognizing that when our partner is trying to create some space here, they need to use this arm to frame against our knee in this case, or perhaps our hips. And that's a very good time to either pin this wrist, get to an underhook, or pick up this elbow, all things to just try and defeat this inside frame, which if we are looking to dominate the upper body in side control is something that we should be doing here. So here, that tight waist is very hard to defeat, but Andreas does a very good job of getting that bottom knee back in here. And so now basically trying to keep our partner flat would be good. And walking around the top here, you can see that that hip is a lot lower now, making it much harder for that bottom knee to come in. So now here, turning our partner flat onto their back. And again, probably an opportunity here to try and pick up that bottom elbow. And again, this left hand or this right hand over the top is a little bit less effective at keeping our partner flat here. And instead, that right hand could be used to pick up that bottom wrist, pummel to an underhook, or something like that. And now here, when we start reaching for these frames here, not too bad, as long as we're keeping our top shoulder forward. It should be very difficult for our partner to get too much happening here. And now Andreas is doing a good job at trying to make something happen, turning in towards his partner. And Mark's doing a good job at keeping that bottom knee from coming in, basically forcing the turtle position and getting to a seatbelt grip. So something that we can think about, whenever we're forcing our partner to turtle, the slower we can make them do that, the better. And you can see that Mark has got good pressure over the top here, keeping lots of weight, probably an enormous amount of weight, down on Andreas's back here and looking for the seatbelt grip. So all these things are good. It means that when our partner is trying to get up to turtle, they're going to have to make this big movement, and they're opening up this space between the hips and the armpits. So if possible, this would be a perfect time to try and scoot that right foot in so that it can be our bottom hook. And if we can't get our right foot in, then another good thing to do is get our right knee in. So if we can point our right knee in towards Andreas's hips and start occupying this space between the hip and the armpit, we'll prevent our partner getting their elbow back in towards their hip and closing all that space off. And if we think about taking the back, we eventually want our hooks to be in this space. So if we can either get our hook in straight away, that would be ideal. But if not, then getting our knee in would be just as good. So here, maybe not just as good, but a good consolation prize. So here, whenever your partner is turtling, we want to try and occupy the space between the hips and the armpits. And that can be done with either knees or feet, preferably. But here, once we get behind our partner, and start pulling them backwards. We've kind of opened up some back tape opportunities, but we could do this in a little bit more of a controlled way. So when we start getting behind our partner here, we have the opportunity, especially with our hands linked together in front of our partner's chest, to try and lift our partner's chest up. So when we lift our partner's chest up, that means that we're opening up this space between the thigh and the ribs and giving us an opportunity to put a hook in. So here in this situation, where we pull our partner backwards, we are giving our partner the chance to keep their knees very tight towards their chest here and making it more difficult for us to get our hooks in. So I think here Mark actually does an excellent job of getting that top hook in. So it's a good example of how we're creating space, but that kind of had to work, whereas if we're doing it from standing over the top of our partner and we can have a go at it, and if it doesn't work, we can still maintain that chest to back position, then we're in a pretty happy spot. So here Mark does a good job of getting the second hook in as well. And now we are attacking the back. Andreas is doing a good job at rotating here and trying to turn to create some misalignment. And Mark's now switched to the choke here. And I'd say that this is a mistake that is really common. Where on the back, we start thinking about the neck and we forget about keeping our chest in line with our partner's back. So if we go back just a second here, this is a very good escape by Andreas, and Mark has a very good control of this arm. So he's got his hand underneath the arm and kind of scooping in front of the shoulder there. And we want to maintain this connection so that we can start following our partner if they're trying to turtle. The main goal that we would have in a position like this is keeping our chest behind our partner's back, so keeping our shoulders in line. And we might even do that by putting our right hand or right elbow on the mat, and that can help us build some height. But in general here, just digging that left hand up in front of the shoulder there will help us pull our partner back towards us. And if we needed to power half or something like that, we could. But I would say that when we are attacking the back, we want to keep our shoulders behind our partner's shoulders, and the control of the underhook on top there will be a very good way of maintaining that connection. So in this spot here, we'll just say when attacking the back, we want to maintain chest to back connection, and against turning escapes, we want to control the top shoulder. So here, once we switch to that control, or once we switch to that left hand over the top to start kind of attacking here, it means we're more likely to have our partner rotate here. And you can also see that Mark's doing a decent job here is switch back to that left hand underneath the shoulder. But what would help us maintain back connection here is putting our right hand on the mat or our right elbow on the mat, and that can help us lift our hips up and follow our partner around, threatening to turn them belly down. So often our hands linked together here feels good, but what would be more effective at rotating our partner's shoulders is using our left hand to kind of cup in front of that shoulder. So that's an important point to note when we are attacking the back here or trying to take the back here. It's trying not to switch over the top for the chokes too early, because that gives our partner a chance at turning back in towards our closed guard, which Andreas does a very good job of doing. So here on top, Andreas is trying to get his posture back, and we have a couple of chances here to be offensive from closed guard. So if we go back to this spot, basically, if ever we're losing the back and somebody is turning back in towards our closed guard, there's often this position here where Andreas's elbow is very much across the center line, and Mark has a good opportunity to use this left hand to reach up for Andreas's lat and try and keep this elbow beaten. So the other thing that I would say about closed guard is that we really want to use our knee pull. So when Andreas gets that right elbow back to the correct side of the body here, then right in this position here, we have a similar opportunity on this other arm where Andreas's elbow has come across the center line. So if we were to keep shoving Andreas's elbow over in this direction and use our knees to pull our partner in towards our chest, then we have a good chance of beating that elbow. And if we think about closed guard as upside down mount, the same goals kind of apply. We're either trying to get our partner's elbow across the middle or on the outside, where we can start isolating our partner's arm with things like an overhook or something like that. So when we are in closed guard, I'd say the most important things to think about are hand fighting and knee pulling. So by hand fighting, we can get our partner's elbow across the center line like it is now. And then by knee pulling, we can consolidate that position and look to reach up over the back to threaten things like arm drag, back takes, and things like that. So whenever we're attacking from closed guard, we want to keep our partner's elbow across the center line with hand fighting and knee pulling whenever possible. So here we've got the closed guard, our partner's standing up. This is a good time to start looking to grab an ankle like Mark is doing now. And we don't really have to worry too much about these Americana threats or anything like that because we do have closed guard there. And now Mark has gone to the leg and Andreas is able to strip that leg free. And now we get back to a seated guard and go to wrestle up. Andreas does a good job of attacking our front head. So if we go back to this sequence here where Andreas has stood up to get out of closed guard, then we've done a good job at getting our legs into pretty much the De La Riva type leg configuration with our right leg in this case around the outside. So one small tweak here that can be really helpful, and there are some more advanced ways to play De La Riva with scoop grips and things like that, but as a general rule here, if we use our right hand to cup around the Achilles with all 5 fingers wrapped around the ankle there, then when we turn the heel out in this direction, then we can use our shin in the back of our partner's knee and start getting them to point away from us. So here, when Mark goes for that calf grip, it means that Andreas is able to start stretching his leg out a little bit. And again, there are some more advanced versions of De La Riva attachments that we could do, like a scoop grip, where we bring our right hand underneath the leg and we can look to use a scoop grip and start off balancing our part over in this direction. But as far as what I would recommend for most white belts here, just trying to get to the ankle will mean it's much harder for our partner to get that foot backwards and start freeing themselves from this grip. So just a little note there. And Andreas does a good job of disconnecting, and then we go to wrestle up. So whenever we're looking to wrestle up, ideally we want some kind of off balance first. A good thing to think about is we've used a long range guard like De La Riva to get our partner to move backwards. When they move backwards, ideally we would like to transition to a seated guard. So when we move to a seated guard, we want our shoulders in front of our hips. You can see that when Mark is playing this seated guard position here, he's got enough space here to start sitting up, and generally we'd be using our left hand to post on the chest there. But you can see that in this position, when Mark has decided to go for that wrestle up option, Andreas is already in a good based position. He's got his hands ready to start pushing us back down or attacking front head, maybe even punching for underhooks or picking up our ankles, and our shoulders are behind our hips. So when we are playing seated guard, we want our shoulders very far forwards, or not very far forwards, but in front of our hips. And that's going to give us a lot faster of a wrestle up option, and ideally we would hit some kind of off balance first. So if we look at this seated guard position here, maybe an option here is for Mark to use both of his ankles inside Andreas's ankles and start pushing the knees backwards, and it's called a dummy sweep, where we start moving our partner or forcing our partner to take a step back. Probably more likely, I would start to attack the hands here because these hands are more available than the feet straight away. But again, if we can get some kind of 2-on-1 grip on one of Andreas's arms, or even double wrist grips, anything like that, and then use our feet inside our partner's feet to create blocks behind our partner's ankles here, then when we push their hands backwards or their arms or their knees, we can force them to take a step back, and that way they'll be off balance when we start looking to wrestle up here. So as a general rule of thumb, we want to play seated guard with our shoulders in front of our hips. We want to play seated guard with our shoulders in front of our hips, and generally we should look to off balance our partner before wrestling up. So now Mark goes for the wrestle up, and Andreas does a great job of jumping on a front head position. And now Mark is in this half guard position. So whenever we are defending against front head from a half guard position, we've got a few options. We'll let this play out so we can see how it goes here. Mark's doing a good job of fighting the hands, and then Andreas basically gets to him out, and Mark does a very impressive bench press. So when we wrestle up and we are having our front head attacked here, we've got a couple of options. The option that I would most likely go for here is, if I'm on the bottom here, the main thing I'm thinking about in terms of giving me a good chance of wrestling up is keeping our partner's trapped knee pointing towards the ground. So that can be done with our right arm being behind the leg there. It can also be, our left arm behind the leg there. It can also be done with our left leg. And our left leg can start looking to get towards a Cassotto hook, where we start scraping our partner's ankle out in this direction. And with their knee pointed down, that will create this kind of shape on the leg where their upper leg has their knee pointing towards the ground, and we're starting to scrape the ankle out in this direction. That way, when we start wrestling up in a half guard underhook type situation, we'll likely end up in a crossbody situation. The other thing here is that for Andreas, he needs to free this bottom knee. So, this trapped leg, and try and get his knee over to this side of our body. So if we can avoid that happening, we're in a good position here. So once Andreas starts getting that leg free, we're in a lot more trouble here in terms of defending against the front head. So maybe framing on the hips here is a good idea and trying to create some disconnection here. But good job getting back to that spot. But yeah, in those positions where we are basically wrestling from half guard there, trying to keep our partner's knee pointing down will keep us safe from a lot of the front head attacks. So now let's see what's happening here on the feet. We are dealing with this collar tie. We've brought our elbows a little bit too far away from our body, giving our partner a good chance at attacking a single leg or a double leg here. And now we're looking to sprawl and get our hips back, which is good. Trying to create some disconnection. And then we jump on that guillotine here and look to roll through. So now we're trying to get our left leg over the back here and keep this shoulder position tight on the back of the neck, which is good. Deep breath for Mark. And now let's see how this plays out. So Andreas pops the head out, and then we end up on the bottom. So a couple of little things here. When we are looking to sprawl, first of all, very good job getting our legs disconnected from our partner's grips before we start attacking front head. That's definitely a good idea. And now here, it looks like we're aiming for the guillotine here. Or perhaps we were trying to step around the back. So just as a little note for the person on the bottom, almost never we want to reach in between the legs, just because we are potentially crucifixing ourselves. So an option that Mark has here is to pinch his knees together and start basically switching to a Kimura style grip on the other arm. So crucifixes are good options here when our partner has reached in between our legs. But I would say that we're kind of in between two different movements here, and this is maybe an opportunistic guillotine. So in this position here, where we have a front head type attack and we're looking to circle around to the back, ideally what we want to do is drive our partner's weight back onto their heels so that their butt is sitting back on their heels. We also want to keep some downwards pressure on the back of their neck and shoulders there to keep the elbows on the mat. And that way we can start thinking about getting a knee behind the elbow before we circle around to the back. We could even use our right hand to pummel behind this arm here so that when we do try and circle around to the back, number one, more weight being down on our partner's elbow will prevent them from being able to lift their chest up and reach towards our legs. And number two, it means that we will start getting into this space between the hip and the armpit, which our arm is reserving now, but we can replace the job that this arm is doing with our knee. So either our left knee or our right knee can get into that gap, and then that way we can switch this left arm to controlling the far hip and start circling around to our back. But all that is going to be easier when we're keeping our partner's weight pushed back onto their heels, like Mark is doing a good job of doing now, or as well as that, putting weight down on the elbows here. So now when we try and circle around to the back and our partner lifts their chin up, definitely a good idea to try and look for a guillotine here. But I'd say the most important part of attacking a guillotine is that initial grip set that we want to do. So here, if we think about the point where we want the guillotine to be applying pressure is on the side of Andreas's neck, and we also will be adding folding pressure downwards on the back of their head. So if we can get the back of Andreas's head all the way behind the back of our shoulder there, then Andreas's neck will be in the skinnier part of this triangle that is being made between our armpit and our elbow and our ribs there. So lifting our partner up a little bit, or at least opening our right elbow up and lifting our hands very high towards our chest. So bringing our hands up all the way towards our chest to bring our partner's head high up towards the back of our shoulder there. That will let us apply the guillotine better, and it will also allow us to tuck their chin more before it starts landing on the mat. And ideally, this right shin will be going across the hips and our left leg will be throwing across the back there. But this is a very good thing to think about if you are looking to attack guillotines from a turtle position, is that initial lifting up of our partner's head to get their neck really high up in that skinny part of our armpit. So when attacking from turtle, we want to lift our partner's head up high into our armpit. So here we roll through, and this is a spot where we could potentially transition to an anaconda, where we would look our face up towards the roof and start flopping onto our side here. And then that way our right hand can reach through into the armpit, our left leg can start trapping that upper arm, and we could look to get towards an anaconda. So definitely a worthwhile transition. But once we get into this position here, we want to make sure our right shoulder is tucked forwards. And you can see that with Andreas's head a little bit too low towards our hip. He's got this quite neutral spine. And with a neutral spine, it's going to be much harder to apply the guillotining pressure. So we want to keep our shoulder very far forwards there. And ideally get this left leg over the back so that we can have that clamp happening on our partner's hip. So we could talk more about guillotines in another video, but here, I would say whenever I feel like I'm not going to get the guillotine, as long as I'm keeping my shoulder very far forwards on the back of our partner's neck there, we're creating that fold. And then often just with a bridge here, we can roll our partner through and start attacking anacondas and things like that. But if we needed to, we could use our left foot as a butterfly hook. We could use our right foot across the shins. There are lots of different ways to roll our partner through, but most of that is done by tucking our partner's chin towards their chest and forcing that spine into a very rounded position where they'll be easier to roll through. Instead of here where we're perhaps forced to kind of stick onto this guillotine, we've done a good job of keeping our shoulder position here. But I would say in a spot like this, by really rotating our right elbow and our right shoulder down and underneath our partner, we can start to force our partner to roll through. Even with that hand out there supporting Andreas, it's usually quite achievable to roll our partner over. So now here, this is a spot where when our partner is popping their head free and they're looking to hand fight, this is often an opportunity to arm drag here. So Mark's left hand could push this elbow across the center and start giving us a chance at scooting around to the side to take the back here. But getting towards the end of the match here, now we are looking to frame and get our guard back here. Very good job passing by Andreas. But let's have a look at some things we can do from this position here. So once we start letting go of this guillotine, yes, we could try an arm drag, but now once we realize that pressure is being put on, we have a couple of options from this position here. Number one is we want to try and avoid our partner going crossbody. So you can see when Andreas brings his head all the way over to this side, it means that it's a little bit more difficult for us to hip escape and to get onto our side here, where our knee shield will be more effective. So an option here is to shoot for some kind of octopus, where if we extend this left leg through, our left leg can act as a pendulum and help us sit up, and our left arm can reach over the back here, preferably with our elbow in front of that shoulder to prevent the crossface. But when we start building up height on our bottom elbow here, we have a good chance at creating some off balances and looking to hip bump sweep and enter into octopus guard. So octopus guard is a very good option when people are starting to go into this kind of negative position where they are switching their base and their head has gone into this crossbody position. So from half guard bottom, when our partner is switching their base, octopus guard is a good option. Is a good option when they're on bottom half guard and our partner is switching their base. So here, when we are framing and our top knee is still in position, inverting is a very good idea. Because our bottom leg is almost past already here, then ideally what we would do is keep our top shin in place here and start using our bottom foot to tuck back in towards our butt so that we can lift our hips up. When we lift our hips up, that gives us the ability to do a forwards roll, more or less, like a shoulder roll type thing. And we can start using this top leg to create some space, and we can look to invert. So that's a good thing to practice here in a half guard spot, is looking to invert. And I would say the cue for inverting is as soon as we start getting our bottom leg past and we don't feel like we can recover back to a normal knee shield position. So it's probably going to be harder with a very crossbody type position. But as a rule of thumb, if our top knee is still in place and our bottom leg is getting past, then trying to invert here is a good option. Now, I know Mark is about 120 kilos and, not the most likely to have an inversion game, but still a good option and a good movement to get good at. So try to invert whenever we're playing half guard, knee shield, and our bottom leg is about to be passed. The other thing is that inverting is kind of coming to turtle in a way as well. So that might give us a chance to just create some space here. So now Andreas is doing a good job at moving to this north-south orientation here. Got a good frame in here, and that's almost inhuman. So let's leave that. So nice job on top here, but again, I'd say the monitoring of this bottom leg could be improved. And something that we want to think about is just always preventing that bottom foot from being able to come to the outside position. So we have a great half guard chest to chest position, and we have the ability to keep our partner's hips flat to the mat and shoulders flat to the mat. So almost always using that left hand to push the knee down is going to be a good way of preventing that bottom leg from coming out. And that's something that we saw come up before as well. So here we are back in closed guard. Looking for an Americana, but I think that is the end of the round. So I will just pause this video and look at some resources for you guys so you can have another look. All right, so here we have some resources for you guys to check out here. There are two different instructionals here, one by Lockie and one by Nikki Ryan. I've marked particular points in all these resource links, and this talks about the clearing of the bottom knee, so using the elbow, how to tilt their hips and step over their bottom knee. That's true for pretty much any half guard chest to chest spot where that bottom knee is free. These are very good things to practice. This is a quick video on how to escape closed guard. This is by our friend Isaac from Absolute St Kilda as well. We have a quick video by Lachlan talking about moving from side control to mount, but the part that is relevant to the analysis that we did earlier was talking about beating that inside frame and making sure they can't use it to frame you away when you're trying to advance towards mount. So I've marked that particular point there. Here we have Gordon Ryan's arm drag to the back, which is a great technique, and it just emphasizes the hand fighting and the knee pulling. So once you get that elbow across the center line, using the knee pull to keep it there and start creating an angle so that we can threaten our partner's back. This is a breakdown done by somebody who I can't remember their name, but they've basically gone through Gordon Ryan's seated guard instructionals and talked about off balances first. So I've marked a particular point in this video where he talks about seated guard off balances, which I think will be useful to set up the wrestle ups for Mark. And this is a video that Lachlan did a while ago talking about setting the guillotine and how to lift them up high so that we make sure we get their neck right up high in our armpit before we start trying to finish the guillotine. This is a video by Faraz Sahabi that I think gives a very good overview of the basics of octopus guard. And there are other great videos out there, particularly from Craig, and definitely check out his octopus instructional, but that adds in using our legs for Casoto hooks and butterfly hooks, etc. But as far as just wrapping your head around the basic ideas and different angles that we're using from an octopus guard, particularly when we are defending against a switch-based half guard, this is a very good place to start. And the last one is a video by Lachlan talking about inverting when we are dealing with a half guard pass. So hopefully this helps, and I will